Hello everyday heroes. In this video I'm going to be covering the topic of suppressive fire. Hopefully I'll be able to answer all of your questions, but if you still have a question, make sure you leave it in the comments. And if you find this video incredibly useful, make sure you like and subscribe. That would make you my hero. So let's get started looking at suppressive fire. First off, what is suppressive fire? Suppressive fire is an action a combatant can take to spray an area with bullets. It's a way to say stay down to a group of opponents, or provide cover fire for allies. So here's the basic rules and mechanics. First, your weapons. You'll need either a semi-automatic or a fully automatic weapon. Next, your target area. The target area is defined based on the weapon type. With a semi-automatic weapon, it's 10 feet wide and requires 8 rounds of ammunition. With a full auto, it's up to 30 feet wide, requiring 20 rounds of ammunition. Next up, we'll look at the field of fire. This is where things get fun. Any combatant within the targeted area and line of sight is hit by the suppressive fire. There's no attack roll, no critical hit, just good old-fashioned chaos. It should be noted that the enemy can use their reaction if they have one to dive for cover and negate this damage. The effect duration. The field of fire stays in effect until the shooter's next turn or until a condition stops them from firing. If an enemy uses its reaction to dive for cover, it must be behind total cover to be effective, and shooting from behind total cover is the same as shooting blind, which will impose disadvantage. The enemy can choose to come out to fire, but will take the damage from the suppressing fire. Okay, so let's take a look now at the effect durations. First, what conditions would cause suppressive fire to end? They don't specifically list that in the book. Ultimately, it's up to the GM, but the likely suspects here would be incapacitated, stunned, blinded, burning, restrained, unconscious, and to a lesser extent, intoxicated and frightened might be considered for the list. Now, in the heat of battle, what happens if a character laying down suppressive fire takes a hit? Since the rulebook does not state that suppressive fire ends when a character has taken damage, that naturally implies that they are able to keep firing. But if you want to add a little variety into the rule system, consider the following changes. 1. Interrupted by damage. If the shooter takes damage, they must make some sort of ability check or other relevant roll, depending on the situation, to continue laying down the suppressive fire. The difficulty of this check might be based on the damage taken. A little distraction might just throw off their aim. Next, we could look at an automatic interruption. Perhaps the game master wants to add a sense of vulnerability. In this case, taking any damage automatically ends the suppressive fire. It represents the shooter being momentarily thrown off by the hit. Talk about being on edge. Third, we could have a resilience rule. Maybe your character's trained to take a hit and keep going. The suppressive fire continues even if the shooter takes damage, showcasing their determination or training. But beware, specific conditions that we mentioned before, like stunned and incapacitated, will still interrupt the suppressive fire of bullets. Something to keep in mind, though, is whether you're the player or the GM, these rules should affect both parties the same way. Next, let's look at the when and why to use suppressive fire. Suppressive fire isn't just for action heroes, it's a tactical choice. Here's why and when you might want to use it. When to use suppressive fire. 1. Large groups of enemies. When you're outnumbered, outgunned, but not outsmarted, suppressive fire lets you take on many foes at once, like a heroic standoff in your favorite action movie. 2. Tactical movements. Need to reposition? Want to make a daring escape? Nothing covers a retreat like bullets. It's like a smokescreen, only louder and more puncturing. 4. For the fun of it. Let's be honest, sometimes you just want to see bullets fly. It's a game after all. So why not indulge in some suppressive joy every now and then? Why use suppressive fire? 1. Control the battlefield. It's like being a conductor but with bullets. Direct the symphony of combat by forcing opponents to move where you want them, or in layman's terms, make them scurry like scared rabbits. 2. Covering allies. Your friend wants to charge into a hail of gunfire? No problem. Lay down suppressive fire and watch them leap into action, knowing you've got their back. Or at least you better have their back. 3. Intimidation. Nothing says I mean business like a cascade of bullets. Suppressive fire can make enemies think twice, thrice, or even 4 times before they step out from that oh-so-cozy cover. Now let's talk about player movement with suppressive fire. Here's the scenario. You're wielding a fully auto weapon, laying down suppressive fire to cover a 30-foot area. Your ally wants to move, and you're wondering if the enemy outside that 30-foot zone gets a free shot. It's a real pickle, isn't it? So here's the rules as written. Though the rules here provide detail how suppressive fire affects the targeted area and those within the field of fire, it doesn't specifically discuss what happens to the enemies outside the area. So here's some possible interpretations. The strict rating. If you're adhering strictly to the rule, it could be argued that suppressive fire only affects the designated area, and enemies outside that zone are free to act normally, including taking shots at your ally. After all, they're not being suppressed, are they? The next option will be tactical consideration. Alternatively, a game master might decide that the chaos and noise of suppressive fire create a distraction, making it more difficult for enemies outside the targeted area to focus on your ally. This could be reflected by imposing a penalty on their attack rolls, a delay in their reaction, or other in-game effects. And 3, the narrative approach. If you prefer a more story-driven game, you could roleplay the situation, considering the enemy's personalities, their understanding of the battlefield, and their tactical priorities. Maybe they're too focused on the incoming hail of bullets to notice your ally's movement. Maybe they're seasoned veterans who remain unfazed. Your game master can weave these elements into the decision. Now let's look at a couple topics that the rules don't cover. 1. Friendly fire. So you want to lay down suppressing fire, but one of your allies has wandered into enemy territory, or the enemy has a hostage that you don't want to hurt. How can you handle that? Here are some options. 1. Accidental targeting. Anytime a player lays down suppressive fire, they must roll some sort of check to ensure that allies within the targeted area are not hit. Failure results in allies taking damage. 2. A communications check. Teams must make communication checks to coordinate suppressive fire. Failure may result in miscommunication and potential friendly fire. This could require a specific skill or attribute check. 3. Safety protocols. Players can take special precautions to avoid friendly fire, such as equipping special markers such as wearing armbands or a specific color or having a unique emblem on their uniforms or gear. Failure or lack of these protocols may increase the risk of hitting an ally. Here's another interesting situation that's not discussed in the rulebook. Environmental damage rules. Imagine the enemy has taken hostages at a local gas station. If suppressive fire hits a gas station, the game master might require a stability check for the pumps or roll to determine if any fuel is ignited. A failure could lead to an explosion, affecting everyone nearby. Another fun situation might be a frozen pond. Firing upon a frozen pond might cause cracks or even break the ice. Characters must make agility or balance checks to avoid falling in or sliding. The GM could add difficulty based on how many bullets hit the ice. In your next encounter, you can try adding environmental effects to spice up the combat. So now that you have a better understanding of what suppressive fire is, let's look at some character options that enhance this ability. These options can turn a single suppressing gunner into a battlefield force to be reckoned with. First, heavy gunner talents. At level 3, a heavy gunner gets Big Boom. Add your proficiency bonus to the damage when hitting targets with suppressive fire or explosives. At level 5, Got You Covered. Double the area covered when taking suppressive fire. At level 7, Bigger Boom. Add double your proficiency bonus to damage with suppressive fire or explosives, replacing Big Boom's bonus. There's also a feat, the Advanced Heavy Gunner Training Feat, available at level 8+, which essentially adds Got You Covered and Bigger Boom as a feat. Double your proficiency bonus to the damage with suppressive fire or explosives, and also, you can double the area covered when taking suppressive fire action. And another feat, the Pinning Fire feat. This feat allows you to follow a target while using suppressive fire, making their escape nearly impossible. Changing the targeted area doesn't take any action, and the dive for cover reaction becomes difficult for the target unless there's total cover within reach. These options add strategic depth and flavorful options to characters who specialize in suppressive fire, whether it's creating chaos on the battlefield or pinning down a critical target with the Pinning Fire feat. These abilities allow players to take their heavy gunner characters to the next level. So in conclusion, suppressive fire, as we've explored, is not just a barrage of bullets. It's a tool in the strategic toolbox of any skilled combatant. Understanding its nuances and applications can lead to exciting, dynamic combat scenarios and add depth to your gaming experience. So next time you find yourself facing a horde of enemies or in need of covering a friend's charge, don't hesitate to lay down some suppressive fire. It's not just effective, it's downright exhilarating.